Mr. Burke, do you want to stand or do you want to sit?
I like standing.
All right, fair enough.
I like standing.
We're going to follow the same format, so each candidate, in this case the candidate, will have 60 seconds to respond. There's a timekeeper up here who will give you a yellow and then a red. The first question, Mr. Burke, is there a specific issue that prompted you to run for mayor?
Yes, leadership. We have many issues in this city. It could be crime, it could be budget, it could be infrastructure, but it could be jobs, but it all comes back to leadership. I've been active in the Northland since 1973. It's been my home for 37 years. It's where I got my start. I'm sad to see when we have a city council, mayor, and manager that aren't on the same page. When we have problems and we look to the city for some help and we see bickering and lawsuits and infighting, that's not the way city government should run. So while there are many problems and many issues that I want to address both tonight and address as your next mayor, it comes down to me, to leadership, the quality of leadership, and who has the experience based on 37 years of service to the Northland and to my city to take the ground running, to get in, know how the mayor's job works, and really make the city work again.
This question has been asked at the two previous forums. A lot of people very interested in the earnings tax. So this question has been asked. Why? Recently, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners was granted a 50% rebate on the earnings tax for their employees to keep them from moving their business out of Kansas City. Do you think this is an appropriate method to attract new business and retain existing business? If so, what do you think this says about the earnings tax and its effect on attracting and retaining business in Kansas City?
There's an Indiana Jones movie where Indiana says, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, and that's where we are as a city against the state of Kansas. And unfortunately, we're the guys with the knife, not the gun. The state of Kansas is picking off our businesses, and they do it by being able to write a check to a Kansas City business, and believe me, they track which ones are coming up for renewal, equal to 95% of 10 years of Kansas state tax for the employees. We can't compete against that. Rebating earnings tax is insane in terms of we can't compete with the whole state just by the city. We need help from the state of Missouri. We need to stop the poaching. But the only way we're going to stop the poaching is by operating from a position of strength. Right now, AMC headquarters is being offered some $46 million. A check on the table, here's your check to move. Thank you.
Mr. Burke, the voters of Kansas City on April 5th will vote on whether to repeal the earnings tax. If repealed, the tax will be phased out over 10 years. What do you recommend the voters should do?
I recommend that the voters of Kansas City should renew the earnings tax. Nobody likes taxes. This happens to be a very fair tax for a number of reasons. First of all, it does not fall on people who are retired, it doesn't fall on people who are out of a job, it doesn't tax pensions. It only taxes those people who rely on this great economic engine of Kansas City for their livelihood. Our city population increases by 1/3 during our weekdays. There are people coming from the suburbs who rely on our police services, our fire, our streets, our bridges, our water, and our sewers. I think this is a very fair tax, and I think Kansas City voters have to understand that the services that this generates, if they're not replaced by other taxes, they're going to fall solely on residents of Kansas City. And we can't afford that as a city. If you had a house and you shared with a roommate and, oops, I'm out of time.
A couple of questions about crime. The Kansas City Star reported in November that Kansas City's police force has one of the lowest crime clearance rates for violence crimes in the United States among major metropolitan areas. The overall rate for homicide is under 60%, and in 2010, the clearance rate for homicides was only 40%. So a guy who murders in Kansas City has about a 40% chance of being arrested within a year. What specific ideas do you have to increase the efficiency of the Kansas City police force?
I spent a very difficult afternoon with a family, the Houston family, Their son was murdered in Westport. Wonderful family, heartbroken, torn up. We cannot accept 106 murders in our city. We cannot accept a 40% clearance rate for those murders. There are a number of things I would recommend as mayor. First of all, we need to address some of the technological issues that our police force is facing. We have an inadequate crime lab. The voters recently approved a capital improvements program for the police department to expand the crime lab, expand technology in the police department, expand the homicide division facilities. I'm fully in support of those. The other things we need to do is address some of the root causes of these murders. It's drugs, gangs, and lack of economic opportunity. We need to get kids young in grade school and teach them that policemen are their friends. We need to stop this culture of don't snitch. We need a police force that does community policing, which I'll talk more about later.
Mr. Burke, why is Kansas City not asking our state representatives for local control of our police department as is being given to St. Louis?
Well, first of all, that is a state issue. The control rests in the legislature. The bill that would have returned control to Kansas City and St. Louis basically died this last week. It was called laid over, which is a polite way of saying it ain't going to come up for a vote this year. I've been down, I spent a lot of time in Jefferson City. I've worked on bills and got legislation passed. This is a controversy that we can't fight right off the bat. If I felt that the local control had a direct relation on our ability to fight crime, I'd be down campaigning for it. But that's not the issue. We do have local and some fine local members of our police board. As mayor, I would be the 5th member of our police board. I will take an active role as mayor in the police board. One of the issues right on the horizon, right off the bat, is the retirement of our current police chief and the selection of a new police chief. I plan to be intimately involved in that selection process.
Question on a lot of people's minds because of the events in Wisconsin. What is your position on collective bargaining for city employees?
Well, collective bargaining is the law of the state of Missouri, and they have the right under our current state law to do that. Like Ed Ford, I did not get endorsed by Local 42, the firefighters. They endorsed my opponent. And I think that's because I took a tough stand on a couple of issues. One is our pension system. Our pension, we have 4 city pensions, they're all underwater. I have advocated and I applaud Mayor Funkhauser for having this week appointed a top flight blue ribbon commission to study our pension system and make recommendations. The other, as you know, the current city council collapsed our mass ambulance system. They merged it into the fire department. They did it overnight. They did it, I think, precipitously. And 6 months later, we find out, oh, there's a little $30 million commitment to retroactively fund former MAST employees' pensions who have not worked for the city, but worked for MAST. And I'm not a fan of that. I oppose that, and that's probably lost me the firefighters' endorsement.
The Northland is underrepresented on city boards and commissions, especially conservatives. Will you commit to making the Northland better represented, including conservatives, in your administration?
We absolutely have to have the Northland better represented, specifically on some of the particular boards that are most interested in the Northland. Some 60 or 70% of our zoning cases are Northland cases. We need a zoning board, city plan commission, that has adequate Northland representation. As far as conservatives, liberals, I'm looking for people of talent, I'm looking for people of commitment, I'm looking for people that know how to serve on a board, that have a passion for their community, and have the time and interest to serve.
There have been several lawsuits in Kansas City government. The most expensive one had to do with municipal judges. As an attorney, do you think that the council made the correct decision to reject the initial panel, and do you believe that they received correct advice from the city attorney?
Answer to the first question is no, obviously. We got slapped with a $2.5 million judgment unacceptable. We've had about 3 of those judgments either upheld or at the trial level just in the last year. That's unacceptable. One of the things I will do, not as attorney but as mayor, is take a look at our city attorney department and see if there are some changes we need to be making, either in the people that help advise our city on human relations issues or on the attorneys that try those cases.
All right. Mr. Burke, Kansas City schools are regularly in trouble. Mayor Funkhauser regularly argued that the mayor should have more authority and more power over the Kansas City school system. Do you want it?
No, but the mayor does have a role, not only in the Kansas City, Missouri school system, but all 14 of our school districts. But the question always comes up with reference to Kansas City, Missouri public schools, and I think we've allowed for too long, for 30 years, the deterioration of our schools. And there's been an attitude, I think, from previous elected officials, well, that's not my problem. Well, I'm sorry, it is. It's our problem when our kids are not getting educated. It's our problem when crime runs rampant because there's no opportunity for kids because they have failed to get a high school education. They can't fill out a jobs application form. There are 3 things as mayor I'm intimately concerned about with our school system. Number 1, we have some 36 vacant buildings that have been closed by Kansas City, Missouri School District. We need to find a repurpose and reuse for those buildings in a short period of time, or tear them down, or they're going to become eyesores and drags to our neighborhood. Number 2, I talked to Dr. Covington, the superintendent, and my time's up.
Okay. Why did Kansas City get involved in the Arizona immigration law, and what are your views on that?
Well, we've wasted a lot of time debating national issues. And I think, we have such major problems in our own city with crime, with deteriorating infrastructure, with getting jobs. And I am opposed to the city council becoming a debating society for national issues when we're ignoring some of the major local issues that we need to address.
All right, and then our last question before you wrap up. What do you think is the purpose of city government?
It's service to the citizens of Kansas City. And as mayor, I hope to instill a new sense of service. We are in the service business. We're not in the regulatory business. I think the attitude needs to change from the top down, all 29 floors of City Hall, so that we understand when you walk into City Hall and you're a businessman, you're looking for permits, it ought to be like walking into Gates Barbecue. Hi, may I help you? And that's an attitude I hope to instill in our city employees. It's certainly going to be instilled in the office of mayor, and that's what we are about.
Right. Hey, Mr. Burke, you've got a minute to make your final closing pitch to the voters.
This is maybe the most important election for mayor in our lifetime. I think I've told you a little bit why I'm running, but I want to talk about the qualifications that I have, maybe compared to my opponent. I have a record of service. I've been a city councilman for all of north of the river. I've served 5 years as chair of the Public Improvement Advisory Committee, holding 16 hearings a year all over the city on our city's infrastructure. I've served on the library board, the library board. I've served on the Old Platte County Business and Professional Association as president. I see some familiar faces here. I got my start north of the river. I want to be the mayor for the entire city. I am pleased, especially, this hasn't been publicly announced yet, to have the 3 Platte County commissioners and former Platte County Commissioner Betty Knight, I'm sorry. It's a long day. It's her fourth forum. Have their endorsement. I'm very pleased to have the endorsement of 3 former mayors. Mayor Burke, Mayor Wheeler, and Mayor Barnes. And I think that's because they know I'm ready for the job. I'm ready to step in the mayor's office day 1 and get this city back in the right course.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you help me thank Mr. Burke?